Welcome to my channel. Please click like, share, and subscribe. This is Motown Chronicles Part 3, Diana Ross. Producer and manager Richard Morris began working with the girls, booking them at clubs like the 20 Grand as the opening act for soul stars like Wilson Pickett. However, Morris also sent them to dangerous ghetto establishments. The underage girls were performing illegally. When they sang, drunks threw nickels and quarters onto the stage. Once, Diana jumped down from the performing platform to dance with a bunch of customers, much to the other girls' horror. When Richard Morris tried to tell her not to take such chances, she told him to go to hell. Life is too short not to take chances, she said, echoing her father's sentiment that life is too short to be poor. But with a twist. If Fred Ross had known that his teenage daughter was performing for rowdy audiences, his punishment of her would surely have been severe. In just a couple of years, the Brewster Projects had made a transformation for the worst. The streets were rougher, no longer safe. Fred Ross had reason to be concerned, but the girls were young and naive. Nothing had ever happened to them, so why should they worry? But then something did happen. Florence dropped out of school and stopped showing up for rehearsals. She refused to give anyone an explanation. I just don't understand why Flo's being so standoffish, Mary would say. This group, we're like sisters. 2 months passed before Florence finally telephoned Mary and asked that the three meet the next day. When Florence was late, they were sure she would not appear. She finally arrived. But the ebullient Flo they had known just 2 months earlier had changed dramatically. In her place appeared another Flo with dark circles under her eyes, a young woman who seemed dazed and unhappy, who would not look Mary or Diana in the eye as she tried to explain what had happened to her. Slowly, haltingly, the story came out. One night she and one of her brothers went to a dance at the Greystone Ballroom. Flo's mother, Lurley, felt it was safe since no liquor was served during the teenage dances, and she would be with her brother. But they were separated, and knowing her mother would be worried if she came home late, she accepted a ride with someone she knew. The girls wanted to know the friend's name, but Florence wouldn't say. Crying, she told her singing partners that the man had a knife and that he pulled the car onto a dark, deserted street. Mary had remembered that Flo could hardly continue her story as she sobbed. Her language became almost unintelligible. Diana and Mary were scared and sick with apprehension over how Florence was going to end her story. She slowly explained that her friend put the knife to her throat and, threatening her life, forced her into the back seat. There, he raped her. After the assault, Flo's oldest brother, Cornell, insisted that she stop singing and going to nightclubs. But it was Lurley who eventually encouraged Flo to start living her life again, to call Diana and Mary and make herself some singing. Florence had been complaining of nightmares, and Lurley thought that perhaps music might replace the bad dreams. That's why I decided to call you, Flo said. That's why I came back. Diana and Mary were too shocked and horrified to know how to comfort Florence. Rape was such a taboo subject in those days that newspapers rarely even printed the word. Women were assaulted. They seldom spoke of their ordeal, even to close friends. The general opinion was that somehow the victims had asked for it. Flo's story was the most brutal Diana and Mary had ever heard, and for it to happen to someone they knew made it even more chilling. Mary had said that they both wondered how Florence Ballard, 17 years old, would ever be able to trust anyone again. After this meeting, the girls never even discussed Florence's rape and its emotional aftermath. They didn't know how to deal with the subject because of their youth and inexperience. Moreover, they simply weren't close enough to talk about it openly among themselves. Diana and Florence realized that the relationship the three of them shared wasn't of a soul-bearing, sisterly nature. They knew that without their music, they would probably not even have been friends because their family backgrounds and personalities were so dissimilar. Mary never understood this. She wondered why the specter of that night always seemed to loom overhead unresolved. "We're like sisters, aren't we?" she kept asking. Diana welcomed Flo back so that the group could continue. Although Flo tried to go on with her life and her singing, the nightmares never really ended. Florence Ballard was never the same again. In March 1961, the month Diana turned 17, "I Want a Guy" was released as the Supremes' first single for Tamla Records. The girls were now earning $10 a week, and Berry, going big time, had someone on staff who kept track of the payroll. Every Thursday, Diane would come down to the office and collect the money for the other girls, said Taylor Cox, who headed up what Berry called Motown's Multimedia Management Division. "I recall having some problems with her over this $40 because she would always come early to pick it up and it wouldn't be ready. She had no hit record. We were giving her $40 to split 4 ways and she was raising hell because the check wasn't there." "I Want a Guy" was not a success. Florence would have the lead on the follow-up, Buttered Popcorn. It too would be a flop. "When am I going to get my first hit?" Diana kept whining to Smokey Robinson. "Soon, Diane. It takes time," he'd always respond. Smokey Robinson was thin and angular, yet athletic looking, light-skinned with wavy black hair worn slicked back. He had luminous green eyes. The first time Diana saw him, years earlier when they were neighbors, she thought he was cute. Now she was 17, he was 21, and Diana felt he was sexy as well. "I've never seen a Negro with green eyes," she told friends. "God, is he adorable." Florence agreed. She told Diana that she was interested in Smokey, but reluctant to do anything about it because she was intimidated by him. After the rape, Florence didn't quite know how to act around men and sometimes was even afraid of them. She began to date Joe Schaffner, who was working at Motown as road manager for the Marvelettes. Flo seemed comfortable with him. He was gentle, understanding, and, she said, the kindest man I've known. Still, it was difficult for her not to be fascinated by Smokey Robinson. All the girls were. Everyone at Motown tried to be as nice to Robinson as possible, mostly because he was Berry's close friend. Berry truly liked Smokey Robinson and often took his advice. People at Hitsville who wanted to get to Berry but didn't know how to approach him ingratiated themselves with Smokey Robinson. His political clout aside, Smokey's dashing good looks made him attractive to all the girls. Not only did romantic poetry about true and eternal love roll off his lips as easily as simple conversation, he also had a reputation for being something of a stud. Smokey was such a womanizer, even back then, and was vulnerable to any overtures, said one of the Vandellas. There were a lot of cute girls always hanging around him. The word was out that he was real hot in the sack, the best lover at Hicksville, with the best equipment. That was what all the girls talked about constantly, his equipment. She remembers clusters of young girls whispering and giggling about Smokey and then clamming up when they would see him or Berry walking in their direction. The fact that Smokey was married did not dissuade most of the girls. He was so romantic, this man, she remembered. Every young girl at Hitsville wanted to be laid by Smokey Robinson. Honest to God truth, there were some guys at Motown who were also interested. Diane was right on the money when she decided to go after Smokey Robinson. Not only would she have the opportunity we all craved, she would be able to flaunt it in our faces at the same time. He could also further her career. Not only was he a top producer and writer, he would work with her group, but he would keep Gordy interested. Diana loved a good challenge anyway, and Smokey Robinson presented one. He had helped her before by paving the way for the girls to audition for Gordy. At that audition, he stole the Primettes guitar player Marv Tarplin, who is still with the Robinson band today. He had also loaned Diana money to enroll in cosmetology school, so she knew he could be generous. He had gone to college too, so she must have been impressed. Florence had decided that she was not going to pursue Smokey out of respect for his young wife Claudette. She once said that Smokey's wife mystified her and Diana. They both had to wonder what kind of woman stands by while her husband sleeps around. But Claudette's loyalty to Smokey was well known. When Berry Gordy made a pass at Claudette before he knew that she was Smokey's girl, she turned him down. Later, Berry signed a glossy photograph of himself for her with the inscription, "To Claudette, the most cutest, the most wonderful, the most sweetest." Diana pestered Smokey until they finally started dating. Under the guise of working on musical material, they began spending time together. Soon, whenever the Miracles were performing around town, Diana was there backstage, said Gladys Horton of the Marvelettes. She would throw her arms around him, jump in his lap, snuggle up next to him, hold his hand, and all in front of Claudette. She didn't care what Claudette thought. Claudette did not like Diane one bit because she felt that she flirted too openly with her husband, that she did not give her the respect that she deserved as his wife. Claudette told Smokey that she didn't like the idea of Diana flirting with him, and apparently Smokey shared his wife's feelings with Diana. She did not appreciate being told how to handle herself in public, and soon she grew to dislike Claudette very much. Most of the artists at Motown were well aware of her feelings. Smokey continued seeing Diana and swore to Claudette that he and Diana were not sexually involved. But it was difficult for anyone to believe that Diana and Smokey were not having sex. Still, in his 1988 autobiography, Smokey, he would not admit to it. One friend of his said that since Smokey was a newlywed when he had the relationship with Diana, he is still embarrassed by his indiscretion, even today. After I did the Tammy Terrell video, I found out that there's a biopic being done about her. As we speak, they're doing a movie on Tammy Terrell, and I meant to mention that, but that is the end of Motown Chronicles Part 3. I'll be back soon. Peace and love.